The polearm is perhaps the most ancient tool and weapon used by humans.
Spears, halberds, and pikes have been prized by hunters, guardians, and soldiers for their balance of offense and defense. And today, we're going to talk about the ultimate polearm master in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Greetings, adventurers. My name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes.
On today's episode, we are taking an in-depth look at the Polearm Master Feat in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
We're going to give you a quick breakdown on how the feat works, but then we're going to dive into discussing the different classes, spells, and other abilities, as well as additional feats that really complement the Polearm Master Feat and drive it up to produce one of the most impressive melee damage dealers, as well as frontline fighters in the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game.
We're also going to look at some roleplay options so that you can really get behind why you might choose this feat.
With that, let's dive in and get rolling.
So Monty, let's talk about the Polearm Master Feat and all of its awesome uses.
Yeah, so the Polearm Master is a feat that you can take for any Dungeons & Dragons character in place of taking an ability score increase when you level up, or you can nab it as a variant human right away at first level.
And it's very useful. Obviously, it's designed around the idea of if your character is using a polearm weapon, this will help complement that fighting style.
Now, the feat is very specific. Here's how it works. When you are wielding a glaive, a halberd, or a quarterstaff, and take the attack action on your turn, you can then use your bonus action to make an additional attack with the other end of the weapon. This attack uses your same attack modifiers and deals 1d4 plus regular modifiers bludgeoning damage on a hit.
When you are wielding a quarterstaff, pike, halberd, or glaive, creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you when they enter your reach.
So right off the bat, the Polearm Master Feat locks you into using a pretty small selection of weapons. But in return for that, you now get another way to use your bonus action and your reaction to make more attacks on your on the combat round.
And this is really key because the use of a polearm usually, well, in all cases, gives you a reach.
Yeah, almost all of the polearm weapons that the feat requires, other than the quarterstaff, all give you a additional reach of up to 10 feet. So when you're using the Polearm Master Feat, if a creature is 10 feet away from you, 15 feet away from you, and walks in, as soon as they cross that 10-foot barrier, you get to slam them with your halberd or glaive. If you're wielding a quarterstaff, unfortunately, you don't have the reach to do that. Incidentally, almost all of these are two-handed martial weapons, with the exception of the quarterstaff.
Yeah, so that's kind of the give and take there, is the two-handed ones will give you that reach. The single-handed one does not.
Yeah, but you can use a quarterstaff in two hands as well.
Awesome.
For extra damage.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I mean, we have the benefit of being able to hit them when they enter your reach. And not only that, but then on your turn, you can make additional attacks.
Exactly, and I think that extra bonus action attack is really what everyone is here for with the Polearm Master Feat.
Yeah.
And just because polearms in general are a great weapon to wield, even if they're not iconic as swords are, I think that throughout human history, though, the spear and the poleaxe type weapon have been far more prolific in human conflict in general.
Yeah. They're great weapons for monster hunters to wield.
Yeah, because you think about how humans have used spears to take down big animals. Like, I think of that scene from 300, where Leonidas is fighting the lion or the tiger, and a vicious animal that's going to tear you to pieces. Are you going to pick up a little sword, or are you going to pick up a weapon that keeps them at bay?
Yeah.
And I think in a fantasy world, I think you'd actually see a lot more adventurers using polearms, because do you really want to get that close to a dragon? Do you really want to get that close to a giant? Do you really want to get that close to a mind flayer? No,
never.
Yeah.
You want something that keeps your enemies away from you. It's a really good tactic, and I mean we've seen it through all of history. And a lot of people when they look at fantasy, they think, well, I got to use a sword because sword and shield's the coolest. But
Yeah.
this is actually a much more tactical use, and it just makes sense. And I mean, we've seen really, really cool characters use polearms.
Yeah, like you just think of all of the Spartans or the Greek hoplites that used those weapons in formations, but also the fact that like there's a big reason why spears were often used by town guards, right? Because you could corner somebody with them, you could restrict where they could move, and the polearm master feat really brings that to life in the game. It really makes you feel like you have this reach and this control over the battlefield in a way that the other weapons really don't.
One really cool thing is I think a lot of people see that the bonus attack that you get is only D4, and they say, oh, well, that's not too much. But the fact that you're adding that on top of your other attacks, I know that you played a variant human and took Polearm Master right away.
Absolutely.
And at first and second level, like nothing could stand up.
It's a lot of extra damage. It really adds up because you're adding your strength modifier to the damage rolls. And this is where when we actually look at our next topic is like, what do we combine this with to get more out of it, right? Yeah. And the first thing is, well, is there a little way that we can get a little bit more damage on this third attack or even on that reaction attack? And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of ways, and it really doesn't matter what class you are. If you're a good melee damage dealing chassis, you've got different options.
Let's talk about some of those.
Yeah. I think the first one for all classes that anyone's going to gravitate towards to right away is Great Weapon Master, the feat.
And yeah, so that's another feat that pairs very well with Polearm Master. So if you're taking Polearm Master early, you might want to look at other feats that you can take to complement that. Great Weapon Master is one of the best ones.
Yeah, the reason being is that Great Weapon Master adds that whopping plus 10 damage bonus at the to a damage roll as long as you take the -5 penalty. But the two feats kind of complement each other in a really nice way because you're now making a third attack with your bonus action. It compensates for the fact that you're making less accurate attacks.
Yeah. So, and you say third attack after level 5 when most of these would
yes,
get their
yeah,
second
because
attack.
In general, unless you're a variant human, you won't be able to have Great Weapon Master and Polearm Master together before level 8.
Yeah.
Right? Or actually, fighters can have it as soon as level 6. And at that point, you're going to have the extra attack class feature. And I think in general, with both of these feats, you're probably going to want to take them on a class that gets extra attack to begin with. So you can get those 2 first hits and then the third hit in. Or if you're a fighter, get those additional ones.
And Great Weapon Master just means that with the bonus of being able to attack more times, you have a higher chance of hitting that plus 10 damage.
Yeah, exactly. And it just adds up. Like, you look at a 5th level fighter that took both right away, or a 5th level paladin or barbarian. It's 3 attacks, right, at like anywhere from 30 or more damage on a single turn. There's actually, you look at the monsters in that range, you got a pretty good chance of one rounding a creature with that kind of damage, right?
Can we talk about my favorite, Sentinel?
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay. This is one of my favorite combinations in all of D&D. Sentinel, if you read the description and read it alongside Polearm Master, the two basically stack on top of each other to make you the craziest bottleneck fighter in the whole game. If you position yourself in an area where the enemies need to try to get past you to fight anybody else, you are going to slaughter a room full of enemies.
So let's talk about why this is. So the first benefit of the Sentinel feat is that any enemy that's hit by your opportunity attack has their speed reduced to 0.
Now remember that because you are using a polearm and you automatically get an opportunity attack on creatures that enter your range.
Yes, and Polearm Master is very specific. It says you get to make an opportunity attack against someone that enters your reach. And Sentinel also says someone that's hit by your opportunity attack has their speed reduced to 0. So what this means is that if an enemy approaches you, as soon as they enter your reach, you get to attack them. If it hits, their speed is now 0, which means they stop moving. Which means if they don't also have reach, they now can't get to you.
And then you combine that with the fact that you also pull a lot of attention to yourself if you are going to be the tank in the party. Because with Sentinel, if they attack somebody other than you that's within 5 feet, you get to make an opportunity attack on them.
Now, bear in mind with that element of Sentinel, if the enemy is within your 10-foot reach but not within 5 feet of you, that won't trigger Sentinel to go off.
Yeah.
But then if they try to get away from you by disengaging, you still get to attack them. And if they just don't disengage or just try to run away and you attack and hit, well, they stop and now they're stuck. So this can create a really big no-win situation, especially if you're a Battle Master fighter with the riposte maneuver, because now you've got a situation where if an enemy approaches you, you can use your reaction to attack them. If they attack you, you can use riposte to attack them. If they attack your ally beside you, you can use Sentinel to attack them. And then if they approach you or try to get away from you, you also get to attack them. So this means that like pretty much every situation that they could do if they want to fight you
results in them getting attacked.
And
then you top that on with 3 attacks on your turn now because of Polearm Master, and you're just attacking everything all the time.
Yeah, it really is a fantastic way to get that advantage in the action economy of being able to leverage your bonus action and your reaction in a really interesting way. And it really makes your character feel like you are the protector, the controller of this battlefield, right? So it creates everything from like this kind of like the Zen master wielding the spear in like that flowing fashion to the like, I am the Spartan and this is where I stand my ground.
Yeah.
Both two really awesome images that you can use when role-playing and describing how your character fights. Right? Of course, there's a few other cool ways that we can sneak in some more damage on top of all this. And the first thing is any way that you can get advantage.
Yeah, advantage is just going to help you out, especially combined with a lot of the things that we've mentioned before. What are some ways that we can gain advantage?
Well, if you're a Battle Master fighter, you've got the trip Battle Master maneuver.
Yeah.
So you can just apply that on your first attack, and now everything else has advantage, and it just piles it on, right?
So you trip with the first attack, and then everything's just going to have a better chance of hitting. You combine that with Polearm Master and Great Weapon Master.
Yep.
That's...
You know what the other cool thing, though, is that if you're a Battle Master fighter and you have that maneuver, if you're not using it on your riposte attack, but you can apply the trip to your opportunity attacks. So someone can come into your reach, their speed's reduced to 0, and you trip them. So now you haven't even needed to use that on your turn. You've already got the advantage set up.
And if you use that, and you set up other players as well.
Exactly. It's a great way to be a team player too, right? If you're a paladin, that's the Oath of Vengeance, you might be able to just swear your
Vow of
Enmity, and now you've got advantage on everything. If you're a barbarian, you're just going to reckless attack.
There's also the Warlock has some cool abilities that can really help up your damage.
So the Warlock, especially the Hexblade, is a really interesting take on this. My favorite one, it makes you a little bit less of a team player than the others, is take the Devil's Sight Invocation and the Darkness spell and cast Darkness on yourself. And now you're just a blob of Black Death. Because they can't see you, so you get advantage on your attacks. It's great. The only thing that competes against is like if you're a ranger or a warlock, you might want to use Hex because you're gonna get, or Hunter's Mark.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get all these extra attacks thrown in, and all of them will benefit from that extra D6 points of damage. Right? If you've got any other way of gaining additional damage on your attacks, whether it's your magic weapon or anything, this is just all going to get taken into overdrive, right? It's a fantastic combination. It's really, I think the next point that I want to deal with is like, how should we approach this as a DM if we've got a player that wants to use this combination?
You would probably want to give a few of your creatures weapons that have reach.
Yeah.
So that you're not just getting slaughtered by the Polearm Master.
And in particular, longer reach than them.
Yeah.
Right? This is a combination that doesn't, especially if they're going to Sentinel, unless they're a fighter, this won't come online until relatively high level play. I think the soonest you can get Polearm Master, Great Weapon Master, and Sentinel would be a 6th level human fighter that used all of their ability score increases on feats instead, which is actually really good. But even by then, you've got monsters like giants, ogres, and flying creatures with ranged attacks that you can use. And I will say that ranged attacks are the ultimate bane of this character.
Yeah, they're meant for one thing and one thing only if you're building them this way, and that's standing in the forefront against melee combat.
Yeah.
But if you have a bunch of ranged attacks, spells being thrown at them, things like that, they're not really built for that.
Exactly. They can still probably take a lot of hits from the ranged weapons, but even the spell casting is going to get around a lot of this too. It's not going to help them if they're hit by a fireball. And in particular, if the Sentinel Polearm Master is trying to clump up around their allies to protect them from the melee attacks, it means that they're really vulnerable to getting fireball.
They're a prime target.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, the other big thing with all this is, like, that character is going to deal a lot of damage. And you as a DM just have to be prepared for that, right? And if you look at, like, what the baseline is, like, that action surging Polearm Master Sentinel fighter could drop easily 50 to 75 points of damage. And so if you've got a boss fight coming up and your boss only has 50 hit points, kind of might want to rethink that one.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the best way to deal with it as a DM. It is a lot of damage, and I think that it can be frustrating for a DM to have to deal with this character that has such an amazing suite of abilities, because it makes them super good at fighting in melee combat, right? But if all of your encounters are all built around a straight up combat fight of, like, here we're going to line up all our enemies right now and we're just going to go toe to toe, that's kind of what the Polearm Master wants to be good at.
Yeah. Right? I mean, like, you might want to present them with that opportunity a few times to let them feel really, really cool.
Absolutely should. You should let them go to town and have the fight. Like, it's awesome. It feels great as a player when you get to use your build. And I think that as a DM, yes, this is on the highest end of the power curve in the game in terms of melee damage output. But if you have a player that really wants to use it, give them the opportunities to go crazy with it. Have that first encounter where they get to just blow it away, and then build up the encounter where they have to think a little bit more tactically about their abilities.
Well, when I started looking at these options, I started imagining a lot of times when I think of my fighter, I think of the Sword and Shield fighter.
Yeah.
But I started to imagine, like, Donatello from Ninja Turtles, or the Red Viper from Game of Thrones.
You know, the other one that I kind of imagined was, I imagined a high wisdom score Path of the Zealot barbarian who is sworn to Odin.
Okay, yeah.
Because Odin was known for wielding a spear, right? There's a bunch of really cool deities that wielded spears, because the spear was such a cool symbol of humanity, especially early on. So if you look at early mythology, there's a lot of famous polearms. Most of them are spears, so you kind of have to use your imagination if you want to adapt it perfectly to the feat.
Yeah, because spear is not one of the options for polearm.
Which is weird.
I
kind of personally think it's weird that it's not there. And I as a DM would be willing to work with the player to give that image, especially if they want to do, like, the Odin thing. Or even, like, the spear was often the symbol of Mars or Ares, the traditional god of war, right? So you could totally have that Oath of Vengeance paladin that is sworn to Ares, that here you go, spear in hand, right? Mm-hmm. And you could even do that whole Spartan thing of, like, having that adaptability of maybe your character carries a bunch of spears and javelins and has a shield. And that's how they deal with the ranged attack thing, is that they also are great at throwing javelins, right? Yeah, right? I also love, like, just in terms of, like, the spear as a tool, pole vaulting. I love this idea of, like, an athletic character that, like, pole vaults over the chasm or uses it to catch themselves as they're falling. Like, a spear is just such a cool tool.
That's actually one thing, and you just gave me even more ideas.
Yeah.
But my character, who uses a spear, I like to describe the pole vault and the using the pole arm well, in my case, a spear, but polearm, to kind of launch myself at the attacks or do various things like that.
It's absolutely super cool, like especially for a character that's proficient in athletics. You can really kind of use that. It's great with the image of like fighting a dragon or a larger creature, because again, like humans have used spears and polearms to fight creatures that are larger than ourselves, and so there's a bunch of real world precedents for like how you fight, or the classic image of shoving the spear in the dragon's mouth as it's closing around you to prop it open so it can't bite down on you, right? Perfect ideas, right? Yeah.
So this has been our guide to the Polearm Master Feat in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We hope that you feel inspired to slay some monsters with your new polearm.
Yeah, and we're going to be taking a look at more feats in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we would love to know from you what you'd like to see us take a look at next. Tell us about it down in the comments below.
Now, one of the classes we talked about most in this episode was the fighter, and we have an entire guide to that right over here.
And of course, we did touch on a few of the subclasses from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, so you can check out our reviews of those right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time
in the dungeon.